G'day and welcome to another edition of the Aussie Ideas Man. This is the third one in a row, fairly quickly for me. I'm nowhere near as quick as the Cretin and some of the others that just churn them out, but I've come across this situation where there have been 3 rants by Aunt Tony, and I just had to evaluate every one of them. I figure if he's going to go to the trouble of ranting, then I should at least go to the trouble of putting my own personal opinion on the things he says, my evaluation of these things. And I do it to entertain people, and I do it just to practice using DaVinci Resolve, the editing program, which I never knew about until I started making videos on YouTube. So, let's get into this one. Oh, I will say, while I was waiting for my wife to go out, I actually changed the way I do things. I started to make the text boxes first instead of stopping and making comments and then later adding text boxes for those things I left out of commenting. So halfway through this, I'll get to a point where I don't have any more text box and I'll have to revert back to the first way I do things. But in either case, I still have to stop and make comments. Otherwise, the fanboys are going to complain that I've just played the Cretin's video straight through without making it uniquely mine. I have to be careful that I am not plagiarizing somebody's work. Everything that is the Cretin's video is clearly known to be the Cretin's video. There he is, in person, talking away. He's filmed it, I admit that, and my purpose is just my evaluation of the speech made by Aunty and the situation in general. And as I said, it's my evaluation. So take it with a grain of salt, have a good laugh if you can, if I'm funny at all, and I'll leave it at that. Here we go.
All right. No, we'll just kind of do the same stuff. Basically rehash the same thing. All right, thanks, Chris. Sorry, we have to do this again.
No worries.
I'll stop it here because my first one there was, why is he assuring Aunty that these will be the same questions as before? I find it incongruous that a company that claims to be fully transparent has to vet what questions are going to go up by anybody who interviews them. There's just a reason for me to stop once.
Technical difficulties.
Great to see you. Excited that the channel is here with us for CES.
Of course, we wouldn't miss it. And we've had a chance to look at the vehicle. It looks beautiful. I have to congratulate you and your team. This is a
Thank you.
Amazing accomplishment. I feel like we're so close we can taste it.
I can taste it.
Okay. Tell us, can you give us an overview of like what parts of this vehicle we're looking at are production parts versus like production spec parts that we still need to buy tooling for?
Yeah, the body structure, all the carbon fiber tooling and glass exterior panels, the rear wheel pans, all that, the doors, the rear hatch, all those tools are in Italy, ready for production. If we wanted to press go, we could be building 100,000 vehicles worth of parts out of those tools tomorrow. Some of the plastics for the interior, the metal die cast parts, those things, we're still waiting to press the trigger on tooling. One is that, going through validation, we may have slight changes, changing fasteners. There's many changes that you'd want to make to optimize them for manufacturability, and those changes will come over the next few months, and then hopefully we'll be raising money over the next few months too. We can tie the end of our validation schedule up with funding to be able to pay for those bigger tools.
Okay. Do we have the funding currently in order to make the validation vehicles, to make those changes to be ready for production? Or do you still need more funding to do all the validation you need to do?
Well, we have the funding to do the basic validation. So testing the thermal system, durability, driving miles.
I'll stop here and clarify a few things. It looks like, as these text messages come through, that they're thick and fast, and so you may have to slow everything down yourself to take in what they're saying. But generally, this being the third time I've evaluated a rant by Aunt Tony, I'm just pointing out that he guides the answers in the way he likes to do it, and he does it very well for a snake oil salesman. But I don't believe it's a good thing for a company representative. I believe a company representative should answer the questions properly, stay on track, and state nothing but facts. What we get from him is that he doesn't answer the questions properly, he guides things in his own direction, and he embellishes what he wants people to hear. So the Cretin has made two, I guess, pertinent questions, and both times have been foiled by Auntie's answers. I'm sure a lot of what I've said there has gone right over the heads of the fanboys, so I'll just keep going.
Stuff like that. There's other things that cost more money, like calibrating the airbags, the anti-lock braking system, the in-vehicle computer. Kicking off some of those things cost a bit more coin, and we're still raising money to do that.
Okay. And you were telling me the first time we had this interview that the ABS and the airbags are really quite expensive to validate.
If he told him that the first time, why didn't he tell him that, as far as I know, this appears to be the facts, and I'm quite happy to have this Apollo stripped down quickly and inspected for whether it has these things. But as far as I know, from all of the things that I've seen so far about CES, I think there's no ABS in there. And I think there's probably no airbags in there. Happy to be proven wrong. And there are other things such as the brakes don't work, is one thing I've discovered from out of spec videos. Already we see that Aunty has concealed some important facts and has brought to this show two substandard prototypes, called them production ready, and has really tried to conceal everything that's not production intent about it. I'll move on.
Yeah, they're not $100,000 checks; they're $1 million plus checks. So they do cost a bit, and they have a lengthy timeline. So we do want to kick them off as early as possible. But how I see it going is we'll continue validating these first builds. We've got some track time scheduled for later this month. We'll go through that for probably the next 2 or 3 months, and we'll continue our fundraising efforts alongside of that. And hopefully, once we're done with validation, we'll be able to start kicking off some of the bigger stuff. Maybe it's in increments, maybe it's slowly, but this is a great show to be at, to inspire tech people that this is where the future lies, and hopefully we meet some great connections here, and who knows, by the end of the show we could have production all funded and ready to go.
That would be amazing. I mean, I do notice that your booth is getting a lot of attention today, even though it's not even open. And then I took a test ride in Hermes.
Awesome.
And like everyone is staring at it. I was trying to get in, and like people walking by were just like, what is that thing? Like,
people walking by going, what is that thing, is not a very good sign, really, because if it's too unidentifiable as a mode of transport and more like a novelty item, they are going to be less inclined to want to buy one. But it's all fairly moot, because when it does come time for somebody to purchase, they won't be purchasing off their first appearance of something. People do a lot more research than that.
We're in the middle of $1 million booths here, and I guarantee the most traffic will be at the APTERA booth.
Absolutely.
Guaranteed. It's the most unique vehicle. Bringing solar mobility to the masses is just so inspirational. We've got a lot of APTERA fans here, so hopefully we'll have 1,000+ people here with these blue shirts.
Yeah.
And they'll all be harassing media to come take a look at APTERA. So hopefully we get a lot of coverage from this show. And if we seem omnipresent, hopefully that inspires the right people to jump on board with us to get this thing into production in the next 9 months.
Okay.
Okay, I've also run out of my text boxes. From here on in, I'm making comments and going back over those comments to add the text boxes later, as I usually do. But here he is at this point saying that he's going to track test these fake prototypes over the next few months, and then he hopes to get money during that time, and then it'll be 9 months after that he plans on beginning production. Okay, well, a few months, that puts me into February, March, April. 9 months from April, that puts me into January 2026. And that's his promise. Yet he's still promising, at the same time, selling some models before the end of 2025. You can piece together his different timeline promises and detect the incongruous nature of them.
Yeah, so talking about timelines, what is the timeline now that the convertible note offering didn't pan out as well as we would have hoped, and it still looks like we don't have the money to do the production tooling. So what are we looking at, 2026?
Yeah, our crowdfunding's been going well, and there's no reason to think that some of the things we're working on right now for funding won't come to fruition. But it really is 9 months from when we start to kick off some of these bigger tools and some of these bigger validation efforts like the airbags and the ABS system. So, I could see us in the next three months being able to tie up some of that funding and still predictably hand off the first production vehicles by the end of this year. that really means that we're scaling production in 2026, though. So, not a lot of people would get their vehicle in 2025. It'd really be 2026.
Okay. What is your
All right, I just had a bit of a rant ahead of what he said, and he's now backed off from the 2025 people will get it in small numbers. So it's pushed back again. All that figuring out I did for nothing. He's just made the admission.
funding plan? So you have crowd.
You want to re-ask that?
Yeah. So in terms of funding options, I know you have crowdfunding reopened recently.
Yeah.
And are you guys still pursuing the convertible note offering with US Global? Do you have other options?
We're really focused on the crowdfunding now, and it seems like New York has a lot more activity on the IPO front. It seems like there's many mechanisms with some bigger banks that we could pursue to get production money into this program over the next really 3 months. So we're working hard on that, and it seems like things started to come together really well at the end of last year. So now that we're in 2025, we're ready to really put a lot of energy into that. And hopefully the crowdfunding will be inspired by what we're doing at CES here and all the testing and good things that will come out of us the next few months. So it seems to be going well to put everything together by this summer.
Okay. So you're planning on doing IPO instead of at the start of production to fund production?
Yeah, it could be an IPO. There's a lot of different ways to approach an IPO, a lot of different structures, but we're fully engaged and exploring all our options, and it seems like New York money is flowing a lot more, so hopefully some of it will flow our way.
Okay. All right. So I took a look at the new website that was launched this morning, and there was some pricing changes.
Yeah.
Can you talk to us about that?
Well, the launch edition vehicle, 400 miles range, full solar, is about $40,000 on the website now. Obviously, when we announced pricing, 3 years ago, inflation has been a fun thing to deal with. But more than that, it was really solidifying our bill of materials. What parts are actually going into the production vehicle? And now that we've built production vehicles, we know every part, every screw, every bolt that's gone into that. So we have a much more refined bill of materials. So we feel comfortable with putting $40,000 out as the price of the vehicle. We also, if you notice on the website, we talk about the savings that you'll get, from fuel if you were to switch from a combustion vehicle to an APTERA. But it's meaningful, $7,000, $8,000 over a 10-year ownership of the APTERA. So, feels like you're buying a $32,000 vehicle when it costs you $40,000 up front. But also, we think it's tremendous value for what you're getting. It's a carbon fiber supercar. It's built on, an aluminum space frame chassis that's unlike anything else. And it's a dream machine, solar powered dream machine.
That's enough. You can tell by the long-winded explanation that it's a snake oil soft sell for a really high price. This thing has never been good value, and its extra price makes it even worse.
For only $40K. We think that, as we grow, we'll get a more refined bill of materials. So it's still not super firm pricing. We're not promising anybody that this is the price you will pay. It could change. It could change up or down as we refine our bill of materials. Obviously, we want to make the vehicle as inexpensive as possible because we want to have 1 million of these on the road by 2033. But that will come over time, and we want to have a conversation with our community, much like we're a right to repair company, and we want to give people the ability to service this vehicle over time. We also want our community to be able to chime in on what we price it at. We think our community believes that if we're a strong company, we can deliver more vehicles, more solar mobility, makes for a better planet, makes for better people's lives. So we don't want to egregiously charge for the first vehicles, but we don't want to lose money on every vehicle that we sell because it doesn't build a healthy company. But we have a bill of materials that's under control now. We've got some consultants that have come in to help us chip away at the bill of materials over the next 6 months. We're confident that by the time we get in production, it'll be a fairly priced vehicle that has amazing.
I'm going to have to stop again. I wasn't even halfway through his long-winded rant. All over just this question of, can you explain the price rise? And I believe there's still a lot more to go.
Features that really is starting a whole new vehicle category in itself. There's never been a vehicle that produces its own power. So
he said this a few times. Never been a vehicle that produces its own power. That's an out-and-out lie. There have been vehicles that have produced their own power. I covered it in one of my first 2 evaluations. Lightyear Zero. It's sold. It was the first production vehicle that had onboard solar, and it produced some of its own power. Now, if you go indoors, there's the squad solar. I think they're much closer to production, if not in production already, and they produce their own power. It's a vehicle. It's smaller, it's slower, but it's still a vehicle. I can't understand how this guy can tell furfies with a straight face the way he does.
Whole new vehicle segment. So, we get a lot of questions and other media asking us, well, how do you compare to the competition? There's no competition. There's no other solar powered dream machine out there. There's no other vehicle that's creating its own fuel every day. It's a whole new thing. So comparing us to any other EV out there, I think is really kind of unfair.
Right.
We're trying to make.
I'll just add that while he's incorrectly saying that there's no competition, there is. But while he's incorrectly saying that, I believe this company is headed for failure on how bad this product is. In its current state, it is so bad that it won't sell. It doesn't matter if there's no competition. Its own incompetencies will prevent it from being sold. I think once the first few dozen gullible fanboys have owned it, I foresee a mass resignation of all the other fanboys following through with theirs. They will get to hear how bad they are, and that'll be end of story.
The most efficient platform. We're trying to eke out as many watt hours per mile as possible, and that's what you get. It seems like a lot of people like it. Certainly people that are watching your channel right now.
Yep.
In fact, I think, is this the first time the cretin has spoken since he asked about the price? I don't know. Things have gone on so long, one loses track of what questions are being answered.
There was Sono and Lightspeed, but they're unfortunately no longer with us. So you're the last man standing, basically.
We're the lone soldier, and we.
No, there's Squad Solar. It's indoors somewhere there. And now I've heard Tilo trucks are going to put solar panels on them. And Tilo might even get to production before APTERA does. Too much bragging and not enough getting things done.
I think that's because we've taken a very different approach. We didn't try to take traditional automotive and solarify it. We didn't try to make, a luxury vehicle that was kind of out of bounds for the common person. We said, let's put all the technology we can into making the vehicle as efficient as possible, and through efficiency be able to drive a cost per vehicle that really makes it mainstream compatible.
Okay. All right. So do you think that, what percentage of your suppliers have you locked down, since a lot of this stuff is still in flux?
Yeah, we've locked down most of the suppliers in that we have letters of intent for them. We've chosen them. We've given them award letters, that sort of stuff. But I don't know by percentage. If you ask Jordan, who will be at the show,
okay,
he would probably have a very specific answer for you. But, the body tooling's done.
Yeah, we know that.
The tooling for the seat's done. The design for all the other parts are done. And we have suppliers that we've awarded that business to.
Okay.
Now, whether we actually go to production with those, we could find out in a month that, hey, there's a guy down the street that'll do it for half the price of the guy that already quoted you. So that's the effort we're going through now, and that'll take a couple months. We'll probably be working that bill of materials really until we actually start ordering volume parts, which is late next summer if we're starting production.
Okay. So is your plan to then build low volume and sell those to customers?
Our plan is to start with low volume and sell them to customers.
Okay.
Obviously.
Well, this is a turn of events, because I'm pretty sure they had initial talks with Sandy Munro, and Sandy Munro said, don't start low volume, aim for high volume right off the bat. What happened there?
Obviously, if the low volume means that each vehicle costs several $100,000 to build, we don't want to sell them for $40,000 because every one of them costs too much money. So right now our focus is on the validation fleet. Let's build the first 16 vehicles. Let's get through validation. Let's get through crash testing. Let's get through ABS. Let's get through all that. And then we can figure out how to get those vehicles into production, which is the assembly line you've seen in Carlsbad, California. It's working with our.
I don't think he has seen the assembly line in Carlsbad, California. He's been for probably almost a year now saying, I can't make it, and I won't want to make it unless there's something I can take a joyride in, one of the PIs. And so, from what I can gather to date, he's never been inside Carlsbad, California, although he has seen other people go through it and noticed how empty that warehouse is. There are more picnic tables with display items on than there are stations where a silly trike can be assembled. There's no plant equipment, and they've got pallet racks galore everywhere, but not enough to house the production parts, the inventory, to get a production line going more than 10 minutes. It's a dog's breakfast, and he knows it. I don't know why Aunty is saying you've seen this. He shouldn't want anybody to see it. It's an embarrassment.
Partners in Korea, in Europe, and bringing all those parts to bear to start making vehicles at 10 a day and then 20 a day and then 40 a day.
So did I hear you correctly that you're thinking of maybe selling some of the very early vehicles for much more?
No,
Okay.
that we wouldn't want to sell you a vehicle for $40,000 that costs us $200,000 to build.
Okay.
Which, all these parts were pretty expensive. You 3D print a part, it's very expensive. And, Tesla ship with 3D printed parts in them.
Uh-huh.
So, there is precedence for having very kind of low volume-ish tooling methods, even when you get to high volume, because you think the part's changing too much, or you just don't want to commit to the tooling. So that's the battle we'll fight as we get closer and closer to production. Right now, some of the parts are very, very expensive. We get closer to production. Okay, our bill of materials is $45,000 now. How do we, sell it to people for $40,000? Oh, we just need more work on the bill of materials. But we feel pretty confident that, we can build this vehicle, sell it for $40,000, make 15 to 20 points of margin on that. That makes us a healthy company, and we can invest in the future and not have to wait for government handouts or subsidies or anything like that. That's just.
Well, they've already had 2 government handouts. One was the dollar for dollar $20 million handout, not a loan, an actual handout. They spend $1, government hands out $1 for them. And they've also got the California government tax break. Now that's a handout, because if the break wasn't there, they'd be paying a certain tax, and that tax is reduced, so the difference is handed back to them. That's a handout. They're getting government handouts, and they've been trying to get the big one in all the 5 years that they've been going. Everybody knows about that big loan. But now he's going, oh, we don't need to depend on handouts. The thing is, he talks so fast, people don't have time to work out what's going on.
The base vehicle price. We don't get any, big federal money or anything for that. $40,000 gets you a 400-mile range EV with solar power that will charge it every day if you leave it out in the sun.
Now, we know battery prices have gone down in the past several years. Mm-hmm. Has everything else just gone up a lot more? Or are there specific things that went up a lot?
Some things went up a lot, some things went down.
Okay.
We see the trend on battery and cell pricing going down, probably for the next couple of years. There's obviously a floor where the raw materials just cost so much, and you're not going to get cheaper than that. And, it'll probably take a decade to get there. But yeah, some things have gone down, and the battery pack is one of the most expensive parts of our vehicle. But then you look at the petroleum and composite carbon fiber glass; those prices have gone way up.
Okay.
So some things you win, some things you don't win.
Okay.
But it all kind of comes out in the wash when you add up your bill of materials and see where you're at.
Okay.
He does say that the battery is a major component of the total bill of materials, and if the battery prices are going down and have gone down in the last 2 years, what makes the roughly $8,000 price rise then? Surely the drop in battery price has more than compensated for all the other lesser items that have gone up.
Another thing that viewers of the channel are worried about is the possibility of the upcoming tariffs. All right, thank you so much. This is going to be the biggest stage that you guys have been on, and I hope that
it is.
I think so far it's looking really good that APTERA is going to get a lot of coverage and a lot of attention, and I hope that it brings us some funding and interest.
It's our first big unveiling, and we're excited to be here with all this other cool tech, and there'll be a lot of media here covering all these other tech device innovations, and we hope that everybody comes here and just says, why hasn't this existed for a decade? How has it taken so long for these guys to do this? And hopefully, it helps us with pre-orders, it helps us with investment, and hopefully it helps us with our fundraising path to get to production.
All right. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, sir.
Good luck.
Have a good show.
Uh-huh.